And welcome to another Game Nexus video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Double Dragon on the Sega Genesis Mega Drive system. This is a little bit different than your normal Sega Genesis game in the fact that it doesn't have the normal plastic clamshell case, but it has this box, which is basically just like two boxes put together, and you lift one side off to get to your cartridge and instruction manual. On the back here it shows a few screenshots from the game. This game version of Double Dragon is very similar to the arcade version since it wasn't really all that watered down. Now the strangeness doesn't end with the box. If you take a look at the cartridge, it's kind of tall like an EA cartridge, but it doesn't have that weird yellow tab thing. And if you take a look compared to a regular Genesis game, the cartridge is actually much skinnier as opposed to the wider Sonic the Hedgehog game here. Today we're going to be playing this on the Sega Genesis Model 1, which you can see right here. What we have is the mixing cable coming out of the front, which then goes around the back into the Sega CD unit, which is this guy right here. And since I don't have one of those fancy Genesis 1 AV cables, this is the 32X adapter, which is the thing that would normally allow the Genesis 1 to connect to the 32X, connected to a standard Genesis 2 AV cable going up to the splitter up there. And then of course the stereo audio comes out of the back of the Sega CD to give us true stereo audio instead of having the Genesis's normal mono. The mixing cable of course allows the Sega CD to play the audio from the Sega Genesis. The mixing capability was actually built into the Genesis Model 2, which is what I have over there, which I may show you in a different video. So all we gotta do is just put our cartridge in, just like usual. And if you take a look here, you'll notice that where the tabs normally would be for the regular Genesis cartridge, there's just nothing at all. So then you just flip on your power, and let's just get started. Okay, when you start the game up, it's going to tell you that it's Ballistic Presents Arcade Blockbuster Series. And of course this is Double Dragon. And that's a pretty good rendering of the theme song. The game, of course, originally released in 1987, is now reprogrammed in 1992, which is a whole 5 years after the fact, and you got all these options you can configure. I usually give myself as many credits and lives as possible, just to make the game a little bit more enjoyable if I die too often and I don't just, like, have the game end. And what you'll see here is very familiar of what you saw in the arcade, the same type of intro. The only thing I found a little bit weird with that is that it made the same sounds that you hear when you play the game, which I guess they figured they added in because that's the sound you make when you're fighting. But as you can see, graphically this is pretty close to the arcade version. I know it's not exactly spot on, but when you take a look at the other versions of this game and the other ways it was ported, this really does look pretty close to the original arcade graphics. And of course, just like the arcade version, you could play Billy and Jimmy Lee. Only thing that bothers me in this game is when you're walking to the next scene, like when you fight these guys and you beat them up, you're walking to the next scene. In order to actually make the screen scroll, you have to walk right in the front of the screen. Which, the only real problem with that is that when you're doing that, if an enemy walks up, he can like punch you before you even see him. A couple of the older games kind of had a problem with that, but you kind of get used to it after a while and you kind of know when to expect to see guys. Another thing I noticed in this game is when someone is about to die, instead of them just like dying in this game, you'll hear a louder like cluck cluck clunk clunk type sound when it's almost time for them to die. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it here, but a lot of times you'll hear that. It'll go clunk clunk. I was thinking there'd be something up on there. One thing you'll notice here is that the design for the Lindas here is changed a bit for the Sega Genesis version. In the arcade version, they actually had different color hair and they had a different hairstyle. And the words by that Volkswagen Beetle were taken away for this version. I forget what it said in the arcade version, but something like Das Auto or something like that, but it's not here. Here's a Bobo, and he's annoying as usual. Definitely gotta say, you can tell it has a little bit of that toned down Genesis type graphics, but it's still looking pretty good here. And I still found this whole whipping everyone thing a little bit weird, but it's not too bad. And there, of course, is the eternal thing telling you to go a little faster. Watch out for this guy with his knife. After I beat this guy, you should see another huge difference. This is actually a pretty big difference that I was surprised when I saw it the first time. Now right here, look who we have as our ending boss. It's a Bobo. It's not that big guy with the jacket on like in the arcade version. I honestly have no idea why the big guy with the jacket wasn't here. And this is one thing I may have mentioned about numerous times in my other Mame reviews. I always hate it when you're fighting the boss and other enemies, especially in this scenario, where the other enemy tends to go behind you while you're trying to fight the boss ahead of you, and he's punching you in the back, while you're desperately trying to beat a Bobo here who can like throw you up in the air. So I try my best to get rid of those guys when I can. One thing I noticed in this version, it seems like it takes Billy and Jimmy a little bit longer to pick up those barrels, hence why I didn't even bother using them here. And it seems like whenever you kill one of those guys, they will respawn. Another one will just come onto the screen, so if you can just get a Bobo away from anything else in the corner, then you'll easily be able to take care of him. And if you notice right there, he actually took a Bobo out with the barrel. That's another thing that's pretty cool. It's that projectile weapons and stuff, if they don't hit you, they can hit somebody else, which is a good idea. Now I don't know if you heard it there, but if you listened very carefully when I just took out that guy, it made that loud thumping sound when you were just about to beat him, like I had mentioned earlier, just like when I just kicked a Bobo in the face there. And there's another big difference. You remember when I had talked about the seamless level conversion in the arcade where it would literally just pan the screen to the next level? Well, of course, that's another casualty of the arcade to home conversion here. Not a real big deal. It's a pretty cool effect, but it's not a make or break thing. And these guys are doing the same thing that guy in a Bobo did at the boss fight. They tend to do that at times, which does make it feel a little bit cheap. That two guys will both get on either side of you. It does get a little annoying, but, you know, there's ways around it. Like, if you walk around, you can easily get one guy on his own. And if you notice there, just a few seconds ago there, exactly what I just mentioned happened. Where the guy could take out a Bobo, but I threw the block and it hit me. So that's one thing to remember. Any weapons that you throw can hurt you and any of the enemies. And these guys are just trying to gang up on me here. And you know, that's not very nice. And one thing that I'm very, very happy about this version as opposed to the arcade version, like, see the scene where there's 3 guys? In the arcade version, there would be some massive slowdown right now because, simply enough, the game was kind of more or less over-engineered, and it was made a bit too much than the arcade hardware could handle. But with this, when they scaled it down for the Genesis, they made sure it could handle everything that it was designed to do, so you don't get that slowdown, which is perhaps the best feature of this version entirely. Well, honestly, I would highly recommend this version of Double Dragon if you're really into the series, for the 2-player support, for the better graphics, for the better sound, and just for the better gameplay in general. Just plays just like the arcade version would. And I just highly recommend anyone who's into Double Dragon or the beat 'em up genre in general, just pick it up, check out this wonderful port of an arcade classic, and I shall see you later.